Hello, my name is Scott Davis. Welcome to New World Birth. This is the weekly neutrino forecast for November 15th to November 21st of 2015. And on November 15th, we have the sun. You can see it denoted here by this black circle with a dot in it. It's in Scorpio. It's also in the 43rd hexagram. And on the outside of the wheel, we have the chop mark for the 43rd, numbered from bottom to top. The 43rd goes yang, yang, yang. Yang, yang, yin. And then the 43rd hexagram is mapped to an opening in an energy channel called a gate. And right here, this is the 43rd gate of insight breakthrough. In order for achievement to be maintained, a new order must be fairly established. It located in the Ajna Center in an individual energy path in the knowing circuit called the channel of structuring, a design of individuality, genius to freak, that connects to the 23rd gate of assimilation, splitting apart, amorality, the awareness and understanding, which leads to acceptance of diversity. And I found human design to be amazingly accurate in describing the person that I use it as my primary tool when I provide readings. And we've got the following activated gates on November 15th. We have the sun in the 43rd gate with the earth in the 23rd gate, the north node in the 46th gate, the south node in the 25th gate. Mercury is also in the 43rd gate with the sun. We have Venus in the 18th gate, with Mars in the 46th gate, along with the North Node. Jupiter is in the 47th gate. Saturn is in the 34th gate. We have Uranus retrograde in the 51st gate, and Neptune in the 37th gate. Neptune's at a standstill or station, as it's going to be turning direct on November 18th. So it's just not moving much at all in that 37th gate. And then we've got Pluto in the 38th gate. So obviously not every gate activation forms a channel, but this information can be very helpful if you know your own human design chart, because some of these transits will form channels with potentials in your personal body graph. And the neutrino forecast is really just a weather report. No matter what the weather, your individual strategy and authority is the correct choice to have an authentic experience regardless of the program. As Ra Uru Hu said, whatever the weather is going to be, you have your neutrino umbrella. As long as you're experimenting with your strategy and authority, the weather is for your pleasure. And as we begin the week, we've got two channel definitions due to the transit field. With the south node in the 25th gate and Uranus in the 51st gate, we've got the channel of initiation, a design of needing to be first until November 29th, where we might experience some sort of leap into the unknown. This is an individual channel that empowers through the courage to take a chance on something unknown and deal with the consequences afterwards. Obviously, following your strategy and authority will help you determine if this initiation is correct for you, or if faced with multiple possibilities to experience a quantum shift, which ones, if any, are correct for you. In the mundane world, we're likely to see people become more competitive, pushing the boundaries, getting outside of their comfort zones, which will be shocking to themselves and others as they feel the wonder of their own unique spirit. If you experience people acting unpredictable during this time period, recognize that it's a conditioning force that will eventually move on, but it could seem that folks are less in balance while experiencing this foreign energetic. With the defined ego center, this could evoke folks without to feel as if they have something to prove or want to improve themselves or make promises and commitments that are not correct for them. The defined G center could influence folks without to obsess about where they're headed, what's their direction in life, where they might find love, things of that nature. This is also individual circuitry, so it brings with it this sense of having melancholy or blue feelings, which are best used in some type of creative activity. And then we've got the sun and Mercury in the 43rd gate. We've got the earth in the 23rd gate. So this gives us the channel of structuring until November 16th. This is about having individuals having amazing insights that require two conditions to be fulfilled to be recognized by others. First, the person who has the epiphany needs to wait to be invited to share what their insight is. And then second, they need to explain their idea in a step-by-step process so that their audience can methodically understand how this quantum leap in thinking was arrived at. More likely, it's going to be a period where people will blurt out whatever's on their mind. So I expect we're going to encounter more freaks than geniuses. The defined ajna center could influence those without to believe that they're certain of something even when they're not. And then the defined throat center could influence those without to talk about what they know to attract attention. This is also individual circuitry, so again, bringing melancholy or blue feelings to folks. We're going to be looking at the sun's Ravi Ching line values daily because 70% of the neutrinos we receive come from the sun. And as Rahu said in Living with the Program, The Lines of the Day, when he was talking about these daily shifts of line values, he said we can always take advantage of the themes of the day. If your strategy and authority doesn't lead you in that direction, you can always notice how the program is affecting others in your environment. So let's get started. On the 15th, November 15th, the day starts with the sun in the fourth line, the opportunist line of the 43rd hexagram, where it's exalted due to Mercury also being in the 43rd. The sun in the 43-4 is described as the one-track mind, exalted, the over-reliance and stubborn obsession with one's mental abilities in the face of reoccurring obstacles, a stubborn reliance on one's unique insights that demands focused mental ability to be properly conceptualized. And the themes of fourth line energies is friendship, companionship, networking, social interactions, things like that. But then later on the 15th, the sun then moves into the fifth line, the heretical line of the 43rd. This shift happens at 2:56 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. The sun in the 43-5 is described as progression, exalted, the step-by-step adaptation to relationships, which hinders breakthrough through practical actions which will not jeopardize eventual success. The gift in knowing when unique insight can be shared effectively with others. Detrimented, a tendency to concentrate on harmonizing relationships that tends to strengthen the position of restrictive forces rather than benefiting breakthrough. An over-reliance on the receptivity of others turns harmony into the conditioner of individual expression. And the fifth line, the heretic, this is really about projection. The projection always goes positive, then negative. Positive, they could do it, they're the perfect person for their, and then if the person doesn't do it, can't do it for whatever reason, they don't meet that expectation, that's when they get punished. That's when they get tied to the stake, things of that nature. So the fifth line day is also a day of suspicion, but also universalization, where something can leak out and spread like a virus, whether it's a YouTube video or a Facebook post that goes viral. We talk about there being paranoia associated with the fifth line day, which impacts the nature of relationships. But as I've said in the past, if they're projecting on you and you are not meeting their expectation, and then they are truly out to get you, then it's not paranoia, is it? And also seduction being a theme of the fifth line day. Also on the 15th, Saturn moves from the 34 to the 9. So we have Saturn and Ra describes Saturn as yin in yang clothing. Saturn is the judge. This is a place of vulnerability where we deal with the consequences of our action. And strategy and authority is the best way to avoid paying the Saturnian price. In the 9th hexagram, Saturn is in the gate of focus, the taming power of the small. Potential can be fulfilled through detailed attention to all pertinent aspects. And in the first line of the 9, Saturn is in the line of sensibility, balanced, responsible approach to problem solving, exalted the ability to avoid frustration through creation of new forms. The power of focusing to create new forms, detrimented after after a hasty and frustrating search, the urge to kick in the door when the key is in your pocket, the power to generate that which will lose focus. And then on the 16th, the sun then moves up into the 6th line, up into the role model line of the 43rd hexagram at 1:16 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. The sun is exalted in the 43-6 as breakthrough, exalted actualization and centering that in breakthrough naturally established both internally and externally a new order, unique knowing that is both personally and collectively of value. And in the 6th line, we're on the roof of the hexagram. I like to think about this as being on the roof of a building. And when we're on the roof of the building, we don't tend to be looking at the building as much as what's in the neighborhood, what's down the road, what's on the horizon, things of that nature. So, Ra talked about, 6 lines, not to get stuck with your head in the clouds because you'll end up with something banging into your shins. Because there's a lack of focus on what's going on around us, because folks are looking beyond their immediate environment. And like a 3rd line day, there can be certain dangers of not seeing something coming, like a car or a bill or something like that. But then later on the 16th, the sun then moves out of the 43rd hexagram and the Earth out of the 23rd hexagram. So we no longer have this channel definition. We do still have Mercury in the 43rd. So that stays there. And we have the Earth in the 8th. So we'll start with the Earth. This is the gate of contribution. Holding together the basic worth realized in contributing individual efforts to group goals. This shift happens at 11:36 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, so just 24 minutes before midnight on the 16th. And with the sun in the 14th gate, this is the gate of power skills, possession in great measure, the accumulation and retention of power through skilled interaction, coupling grace with control. And the sun in the first line of the 14 is money isn't everything. The recognition that wealth has its own problems. Exalted, the lust for liquor, tempered by higher principles. The key to maintaining power is higher principles. Detriment to the delusion that you can throw money at problems. Energy alone can never be the key. And when we got the sun in the 1st, 2nd, 3rd lines, we're now in a new hexagram. This 1st, 2nd, 3rd lines are the lower trigram, which is more focused on the individual process. So these are days when people are more looking inward, more absorbed in their own process, with the theme of the first line being a fear or an anxiety that needs to be investigated. So it might be a day to study, not to act, a day to look into things, not to jump, a good day to deal with things you don't know, can't understand, or can't make sense of. And then on the 17th, the sun then moves into the 2nd line of the 14th hexagram. And this shift happens at 9:54 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The sun in the 14.2 is described as management, the wisdom that investing in expertise brings rewards, exalted expansion, and the ability to delegate responsibility. The key to power lies in not trying to be and do everything alone, detrimenting the vanity to be one's own best expert. The key to power is doing everything individually. Second line days, everybody's waiting for something. They're waiting to be called, particularly called for their natural talents. Again, we're looking at the lower trigram, so that hermit energy, people tend to be stuck in their own trip. Might not be a great day to have a party because folks really are not in the mood to go anywhere under the influence of the hermit. Also on the 17th, we have Mercury moving out of the 43rd and joining the Sun in the 14. And Venus moves from the 18 and up into the 48. So it's interesting, this Mercury shift actually happens earlier in the day before the Sun gets to the second line of the 14. So once we have Mercury moving into that 14th gate, it actually detriments the Sun in the first line. So Mercury is the messenger of the gods, and this is about communication and expansion of human consciousness through communication, not just as words, but also as music. According to Ra, what do you need to communicate in life? Well, we communicate the message of our design Mercury through the medium of our personality Mercury. And what might be communicated when Mercury is in the 14? Well, do we have the fuel to follow our direction? This is the gate of power skills, possession in great measure, the accumulation and retention of power through skilled interaction, coupling grace with control. And as I said before, Mercury is detrimented in the first line of the 14. And so until the Sun gets to that second line later in the day, it's actually, once Mercury gets into the first line, it's detrimenting the Sun also in the first line. So Mercury in the first line of the 14, and the Sun there as well, until what do we say, 9:54 p.m. This is again, money isn't everything, and it's the recognition that wealth has its own problems, detrimented, the delusion that you can throw money at problems, that energy alone can ever be the key. So, and then also on the 17th, we have Venus moving from the 18 to the 48th hexagram. And in human design, Venus is very powerful, deeply misunderstood according to Ra. This brings morality, natural law, in which we deal with the other and the consequences of the world around us, and what disturbs you on a moral level. Your design and personality Venuses tell us about the moral dilemma that you're going to work with, and that if you don't act with moral clarity, Venus can be unkind in its retribution. In the 48th gate, Venus is in the gate of the well, depth, the necessary and qualitative foundation that is a prerequisite to establish the common good. And in the first line of the 48, this is insignificance, exalted, the instinctive recognition of what is practical and deserves attention, a taste for recognition, for recognizing what is practical and deserves attention, detrimented an ego tendency to apply energy to trivial considerations, a taste for trivia. On the 18th, the Sun then moves into the third line. So leaving the Hermit line, moving into the Martyr line of the 14th hexagram at 8:13 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The Sun in the 14.3 is service, the utilization of talent and wealth for the highest good, exalted, selfless contribution to society. The key to power lies in selfless contribution to others. Detrimented greed and self-destruction of moral fiber, the power of selfishness to fuel greed. And third line days, the martyr line, we're talking about trial and error process, bonds made and broken, a system of discovery by figuring out what doesn't work. Things bump into us under that third line energy. So it's a day to be careful of the roads, be careful of swinging doors, swinging elbows, things in your environment that could bump into you. This might be a day where you have bonds made and broken, that you might feel like you're going through a trial and error process. It's a good material day. It's a good day to do work and do business and work on the material plane. But you also have to be careful because things can go wrong. But hopefully if they do, they lead to some sort of discovery. On the 19th, the sun then moves into the fourth line, opportunist line of the 14th hexagram at 6:31 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The sun in the 14.4 is described as security, the concentration on establishing a strong foundation. Exalted, protection from assault. The key to power lies in developing skills to ensure a strong foundation. Detrimented, overconfidence in meeting the challenge of competition that may threaten the very basis of security. Without proper skills of the instability to guarantee security. And fourth line days, we're moving out of the lower trigram into the upper trigram, moving from looking inward to looking more outward, moving from a personal process to more transpersonal, with the themes of the fourth line day being companionship, networking. It's a great day for social interaction. And then also on the 19th, Mars moves out of the 46 hexagram where it's leaving behind the north node, and it moves into the 18. So we have Mars in the gate of correction. Work on what's been spoiled, the vigilance and determination to uphold and defend basic and fundamental human rights. Mars in the first line of the 18. Anyway, Mars in the first line of the 18 is conservatism, the adherence to traditional patterns despite and or in spite of changing circumstances. Exalted, gradual modification to avoid eventual upheaval, the potential to correct through gradual modification. Detrimented, the patriarch whose rigidity guarantees deterioration, the potential to refuse to correct. Ross spoke about Mars being an extraordinary and immature energy resource that lacks refinement and is subject to outbursts. Mars represents the warrior archetype, and by following our strategy and authority, we slowly refine the energy of our design and personality Mars from immaturity to wisdom. And that brings us to the 20th. The sun then moves into the fifth line, into the heretic line of the 14th hexagram at 4:49 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The sun is exalted in the 14.5, and it's described as arrogance, the ever-present risk in positions of power. Exalted, innate dignity. Innate dignity is the key to power. And fifth line days, again, we're talking about the heretic. As I said before, projection is a major theme here. And that it's a day of suspicion, but also universalization, paranoia, and seduction also being themes of that fifth line day. But I really think that, if you want to know anything about the fifth line, it really is that it's about projection and what's being projected on you. Are you meeting that expectation? If you're not meeting that expectation, you can expect to be punished for that. And then also on the 20th, Mercury moves out of the 14, leaving the sun, and it moves into the 34. So we have Mercury, as we just talked about earlier, this is about communication. So what might be communicated when Mercury is in the 34? Well, this is going to be interesting because this is a time when we may find more people grunting or growling or moaning or sighing when Mercury is in the 34. This is the gate of power, the power of the great. Power is only great when its display or use serves the common good. And with Mercury in the first line of the 34, this is the line of the bully, the indiscriminate use of power, exalted, the less negative, the resort to power as a manifestation of frustration, the energy to display power as a response to frustration, detrimented, the comeuppance that is the inevitable destiny of the bully, the ever-present risk of retaliation to power displays. And then on the 21st, we have the sun moving into the 6th line, so up into the role model line of the 14th hexagram at 3:06 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The sun is exalted in the 6th line of the 14, which is humility, wealth, and power at its most exalted. Exalted, the enlightened recognition that material success is God's will. Spirituality is the key to acceptance and the source of power. And, again, we talked about, the idea of the 6th line is looking beyond, looking down the road, looking at the horizon. So again, people may be not so clear about what's going on right around them because their minds are thinking about the future. That can influence whether they're aware of people in their personal space or, if they're driving, aware of people on the road. A little caution might be helpful under that 6th line energy. So no matter what the energies are conditioning you during the week, just remember this experience is about being a passenger, riding in a vehicle that's being driven by the magnetic monopole. So enjoy the scenery. Let the vehicle take you where you need to go through using your strategy and authority. Every day is a blessing no matter what dramas beckon to distract you. We're all here just giving the performance of a lifetime on this world stage. But take some time to observe the play or observe your movie as well as acting your part by remembering that you're a spiritual being that's having a human experience. As always, I want to thank you for checking out New World Birth. The next segment of the weekly neutrino forecast will be for November 22nd, 2015, should be available on the 21st, when we'll continue to look at the influence of the heavenly bodies as they transit the sky in the hexagrams of the I Ching. And you can check us out on Facebook, Blogger, or YouTube, as there's New World Birth presences in all those places. And I encourage you to share this information as videos or as text as widely as you choose, and invite you to contact me at newworldbirth@yahoo.com if you have any questions or you wish to schedule a reading. And if you've been thinking about getting a reading, please contact me. I would love to provide you a reading during these uncertain times. You'll need to be able to contact me in Maine in the USA, or we can connect with Skype to receive your reading. You can call me in Maine. Or we can Skype, whichever works best for you. We're also accepting donations to keep these reports freely available. And emailing me at newworldbirth@yahoo.com is one way that you can make a donation. And I'll give you instructions on how to do that. Or get a reading. It's another way that, the money goes to supporting us here. And the readings I give tend to be pretty epic. They tend to be, 2 hours, 3 hours, sometimes 4 hours. And I've tried to break them down into reasonably priced options so that that people can afford to get the details that I give. And like I said before, these are pretty epic long readings that can be very helpful in learning how to navigate what's going on in your life. As always, I'm blessed that you've taken the time to connect with my passion for these ancient mysteries and their application to our journey during this incarnation. The light in me honors the light in you. Namaste, in Lakesh, and as Ra would say, love yourself. Thanks for everything, and look forward to connecting with you next week. Peace, everyone.